In ancient Greek myth, the moral of the story of the Minotaur has surprisingly little to do with the Minotaur itself. Bovine creatures in the context of Hellenic art were always used to represent the consequences of someone failing in their responsibilities to civilization. Satyrs or goatmen were frequently associated with betrayal, a lot like the Conan story we'll be going over today, in search for profit. Centaurs or horsefolk would represent the threat of not joining the military effort, thus the taking of the nation's women by rival tribes. And the Minotaur story is about letting one's positive emotions get the better of them after a victory. It's a story about the dangers of arrogance. The Minotaur, representing an enemy soldier, is slain by Theseus, which results in him being too excited to realize that he needed to give a sign of him living to his father, King Aegus. However, he does not do so, and his father, thinking of the brutal death his son must have endured because of something he feels personally accountable for, ends his own life. In our second episode of our Bestiary and Conan series, you will learn the most likely theory of how these monsters came into the Hyborian Age and how brutally they gore their victims before death. Prepare yourself, as this one contains themes of child mortality and bestiality. You have been warned. Grimdark. Half off! The two types of bovine-connected man creatures that exist in this universe are best called Minotaurs and Bullmen. But before we get to them, we have to go back in time to the Elder Night. Long before the beings we know today as demon gods were banished to the hell realms of the Outer Dark, there existed the entity known as Jebel-Sag, dedicated to the teachings of his primal language. This language blurs the boundaries between all bestial and sentient life. He has had many children, including several demigods that could talk to animals, werewolves, and many a demon god. In his endless list of children, he must have mated with a cow, producing the shape-shifting bull-headed god Pitior, sometimes appearing as a great bull called the King Bull, and other times appearing as an obese man called Adonis. Connected to the moon like his father and sibling gods through the night sky by which all of his nocturnal rituals are practiced, this is all we can say of Pitior before sidetracking once more to explain the rest of this theory. You see, Sagian or Jebel-Sag werewolves are not the only kind present in the Howardverse, just the only kind present in the Hyborian Age. Robert E. Howard was also responsible for one of the best werewolf tales on the market, called Wolf's Head. In this tale, it is explained that much after the time of Conan, during the time of King Solomon, a new breed of werewolves would be born, from demons trying to escape the historical figure's mass enslavement of them by possessing themselves into wolves. In their extreme emotional state, they did not merely possess these beasts, but fused with their souls. It is likely then that Jebel-Sag's influence re-emerged under the light of the full moon, transforming them into the savage beasts. To understand the Minotaur created by Pitior, you must understand these post-Solomon werewolves. This also gives us insight into all forms of human-animal transformations. Lycanthropy in Conan is a form of heraldry, or the act of becoming a half-demon, in service to a demon god like Jebel-Sag, or, as heraldry is most famously known for, the demon god Zotli. In that same line, it is important to remember that the Minotaurs of Conan are not created through humans or bestiality, at least not directly. In Conan, issue number 142 of 1983, we see a cheating husband by the name of Phorboss the farmer, who, in retaliation for his behavior, his wife performs a magic ritual to Pitior on his prized bull, turning it into a minotaur, hungry for human flesh. In this case, it's specifically the flesh of virgins, but it's seen to eat men as well. Given what we know about heraldry, with the examples of physical transformation being present both in lycanthropes and heralds of Zotli, in both cases only eventually transforming back because of their sentient human soul being present in absence of their god's will, this begs the question of what would happen should the sentience not be there. What if heraldry was forced upon a beast? While his rituals involve gruesome acts of murder and sex, Pitior is a god of male fertility, dedicated to his father's mission of uniting all men and beasts, thus male fidelity. Proof that the Minotaur is meant to bring punishment to humanity for its improper mating is the hunger for flesh all Minotaurs possess. This is not a new sentient race or beast man, but rather an abomination with the head and legs of a bull, but the body of a hulkish man. In their ravenous hunger is a desire to cull the populations of decadent humans who are kept from learning the primal language through their civilized ways, one consequence of which is overpopulation. The only way to kill a Minotaur is by stabbing its heart. This was done by Conan, ending the threat of one of these creatures in Argos. I say that bestiality does not directly play a role, as Pitior's rituals in almost all his forms include bestiality in them. Usually with rams, goats, cows, or bulls, as these are his most used animal symbols. In exchange for these terrible rituals, along with the sacrifice of both beast and man upon his altar, the couples of the tribe will have healthy, powerful children. An alteration of this process under the king bull interpretation of the god is also how we get bull men. Our representation of bull men comes to us from the character Baal Pitior. While not being a bull man himself, he was born with mutations that resemble them, thus why he was given his name by his current master before being slain by Conan. His master himself was also a priest of Hanuman, another of Jebel-Sog's children and father of 8 men in the Conan universe. This lends even further legitimacy to our understanding of Pitior being within the Jebel-Sog family of demon gods. It is best theorized that the ritual of heraldry occurs through a human sacrifice, which adds the man-body element, then afterwards mating with the bull, allowing Pitior to enter the bull's body temporarily to mutate it into its new form. Afterwards, reverting to savagery after Pitior leaves the newly turned half-demon to wage war on civilization. At this point, without the knowledge to defend herself, like Phorbo's wife, the creator of the Minotaur would be eaten as it gains its first taste for human flesh. While not shown, this theory, along with the knowledge we have of Pitior, would also indicate the creation of goat Minotaurs, created through similar means, serving similar purposes. This is not to be confused with satyrs, which are different creatures in the Conan universe, effectively being chimeras. Goats are famously omnivorous in diet and confrontational as animals. It wouldn't take much for a half-demon one to get a taste for human flesh. As we enter the second half of our video, we leave behind the beast-headed monstrosities to focus on more human-looking ones. The bullmen are born from a mating process being conceived in the same way that the Minotaur of Greek myth was. A bull, designated as the king bull by his worshippers, thus possessed by Pitior, like in our proposed Minotaur ritual, mates with a chosen woman of the cult. From this gross coupling, many hulkish babies are born. However, most of these children are brain dead or extremely deformed. When this occurs, they are left to die, and the woman is forced to conceive again. The supernatural stress of this possession aspect of the process sometimes also causes the death of the king bull, thus a new bull is christened. When a sentient, healthy child is born, they always grow into a hulkish, brute-bodied man, just tall enough to seem unnaturally so in proportion with his thick muscles. These healthy children are always male and are groomed from a young age to become the next high priest of the cult. We can assume from this that the series of brain-dead children and bullmen are also what would occur should a Minotaur succeed in mating with a human woman. As for if the heraldic bovine would try such an action, it would primarily be concerned with the consumption of human flesh, but when your lineage is bestiality and your demonic father is a male fertility god, it goes without saying that they would try should they not be hungry. There are days when I often say to myself that Conan isn't really a grimdark universe, just one with a lot of consequences for the actions of the people involved. While on one hand this is surely an example of consequences in many ways for extreme degeneracy, at the same time, something about the transhuman nature of this particular beast truly chills me to the bone. Tying our Conan lore back to the original story, when humanity becomes so arrogant that it thinks its petty problems justify the darkest of acts, it is the innocent who inevitably suffer. Whether that was the several people eaten by the Minotaur transformed by Phorbo's wife while it was trapped in a maze beneath the earth, yes, they also copied that from the story, or the several innocent women ultimately forcibly fucked to death by a bull that crazy people worship in the hopes of creating a superhuman leader for their cult. Then there's also the bull, of course, who is either turned into a half-demon abomination in the form of a Minotaur, or has a heart attack from being sexually stimulated while possessed by a demon god. While the motivation for the Minotaur's creation in this issue we discussed today was its own storyline, expanding on the extrapolated narrative of a punishment for improper creation of life or extreme infidelity for cool story ideas using this horrific beast is a good idea. It is often the case that the Jebel-Sog family of gods, which only hates civilization rather than humanity itself, is at odds with the truly misanthropic demon gods such as Set, as well as any god that would prize civilization creation like Mitra or even the followers of the Great Old Ones in the forms of Cthulhu, which always prize upward civilizational knowledge that's in the form of his cultists, not necessarily Cthulhu himself. Similar to the events described by the Serpent Men in the Isle of Sipta DLC for Conan Exiles, it is easy to imagine a war between a hyper-civilized Cthulhu cult, a King Bull cult creating Minotaurs who seek to wage war on civilization, and Serpent Men seeking to kill both other parties, as they are humans. Stumbling upon this in some underground cave, which doubles as a meeting place for the Cthulhu cult, which moved into a small village that already worshipped the King Bull and was built on top of a Serpent Man colony hiding in the area, would be an amazing start to an adventure on the southwest coast of Hyboria, which after the hellish ordeal was over, the players would have to piece together what happened. Another great idea would be a werefolk fake-out. So the idea of like the connection to a werewolf, to Jebel Sog, the moon, and dead people slain by a man-beast would all be there. Only at the last second would they realize that they were dealing with a much different beast. Alright, until next time, I leave you with the... Well, no, I was going to do a stupid thing with a song that has nothing to do with Conan, but instead I'll just leave you with this simple piece of advice. Aim for the heart. These things are horrific demonic abominations. Please destroy them. Please eradicate the world of them, and please eradicate their worshippers. Thank you.